the work that's being done at the college, and especially the new Norris House. I'll get our slides up here, but as I'm talking, I'll start with sharing just a little bit of an overview of what we've been doing. Professor French, that's here below, and many of you know Professor Shelton, who's here. Also Professor James Rose, who's not here today, and many others at the college that we've been working toward more and more trying to develop a research and outreach effort that involves design build programs for both the educational benefits in the college, a lot of professional and collaboration that involves, as well as to take our mission of good design out into the communities and elevating parts of Tennessee with our work and ideas. So some of those have been recognized over the years by the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture through collaborative practice awards, new faculty teaching awards, housing and design awards that have involved hopefully many of your interns that you start to see in practice as well. We'll follow to our next slide. And this slide just will give you a few images just to let you know some of the projects that are completed or underway. The Optimist Pavilion that you see on the right-hand side, Professor Rose completed with Professor French and students in the Construction Explorations course. We're also happy to have completed the Panther Creek Overlook, which in this case you see in the Art and Architecture building, but it was disassembled and reinstalled up in Morristown, so hopefully you made a hiking trip up there, a camping trip, and can experience that. That was a collaboration as well with the art department in terms of developing interpretive panels. There have been many explorations done by Professor Shelton and his students at Tennessee State Parks across the state of Tennessee, and we've had the great support of Mike Fitz as well in finding projects to work on in that regard. And up above you see a visitor center addition and renovation that has been mostly designed, and we're working with the park up at Panther Creek State Park again on fundraising toward a LEED Platinum project. We've involved some of the USGBC LEED goals in many of our projects as ambitions for the student and as demonstration projects for the state. So I will share with you today the new Norris House is a project that began in fall of 2008 actually, with a collaboration between the planning department and the architecture department. And it was an effort to compete in the EPA's People, Prosperity, and Planet competition. It's a national competition that involves students from academic disciplines, all academic disciplines, to propose solutions to real-world challenges involving the overall sustainability of human society. The students from various departments have worked on this project over the course of the last 2 years to address obstacles to sustainable residential design in historic or infill settings, including the regulatory, social, economic, and aesthetic constraints. The chosen context for this investigation is the new Norris, Norris, Tennessee. This team was one of 40 teams across the country to be selected again from multiple disciplines for Phase 1. They traveled to Washington, D.C., which you see here, and competed with those 40 teams to ultimately be selected as one of 6 winners of the EPA competition and $75,000, which we've sought great support since then to basically bring our design to the marketplace. And the students that are here today will tell you a bit about those. I'll give you their background. Samuel Mortimer is a College of Architecture and Design graduate this year. Joan Monaco is a graduate last year and worked on the project as a student, and now works on the project as a researcher at the UT Center for Clean Products. Daniel Luster is graduated the BARC program this year. Mary French is a structural engineering graduate of the master's program this year. Matthew is a graduate, or is not yet graduated, close, in the civil and wastewater engineering program. And Nick Richardson graduated this year in the MARC program as well. They'll share a little bit about what each of their focuses has been. As I mentioned, we were working with the planning department. Originally, also have landscape architecture students and environmental studies students who have participated. So the effort is certainly to synthesize as many of the experiences that you can imagine experiencing in practice in an interdisciplinary education as well. So I'll let the students kind of go through, and hopefully we'll have a few questions in the end.
right, well, the project then was, in 1933, the Tennessee Valley Authority constructed the Norris Dam, and as part of the dam construction, they built the city of Norris, which was a planned community, a garden city community, built around the garden city principles, which were integrated industry, a green belt, which tied in the footprint of the city to keep it relatively small, and a lot of networks and walking paths with it. So the project then is a reinterpretation of the original series of homes which occurred in Norris, which were referred to simply as the Norris homes, for the 21st century. At the time, they were considered very progressive, had a lot of environmental concerns as well as social aspects. Were all carefully integrated both into the town and into the community.
The Norris project reinterprets the Norris paradigm and builds on the sustainable garden city model on which the town was founded. In phase one, we proposed community nodes on the sites of shared garages that no longer exist but are still linked by a network of pedestrian paths. The community nodes provide a place for residents to gather and lead into the larger community. Change the slide. The amenities provided in nodes enable a new housing type, which was proposed as a grouping of 3 expandable dwelling units intended to accommodate residents at varying stages of their lives and also allow for a variety of ownership models. The structures are positioned in the landscape to preserve existing landscape structure and also to employ passive heating and cooling strategies and offer a balance between privacy and community engagement.
So in the fall of 2009, we were forced, based on a deed restriction from the original site, to change to a new site, which is on Oak Road. It's not part of the core of the original North Plan, but it sits in the periphery. It is an infill site. There's an existing structure already. Initially, this was seen as obviously a challenge to change sites this far into the project, but in the end, it became a useful investigation of taking our ideas and boiling them down and reapplying them to a new situation, just in terms of testing the viability and the repeatability of the project as a whole. We did a lot of investigation into the kind of environmental aspects of the street and the contextual analysis. Next slide. One thing that really the house tries to do mainly, though, is the footprint is pared down significantly, and it tries to keep with the historical fabric as it exists on Oak Road. So it's a 20 by 30 footprint, 8.5, 12 roof. The home is organized such that there's a public zone and a private zone as seen in the plan here. The more dense kind of living zone on the upper side is the private, while the openness, which you can see in the rendering here, is this kind of more public zone, which allows for the kind of a continuous view through and also a lot of flexibility in the home, which was in part a response to the part of the footprint in the first place.
In order to keep with the sustainable ideals of the project, structurally we felt it was important to make the house flexible, adaptable, and to employ advanced framing techniques, which minimizes the framing material and maximizes the insulation. The flexibility and adaptability was accomplished by the use of a ridge beam with minimal interior supports, thus eliminating the need for any collar ties or an attic. And also by specifying connections using screws whenever possible, anticipating material salvage in the very, very distant future. The advanced framing methods utilize a number of techniques that for the new Norris House resulted in a 17% reduction in framing lumber from traditional framing methods, which also increases the volume that can be occupied by insulation. Also, we anticipated the involvement from Clayton Homes, to build the envelope of the house. So we planned for a split down the ridge of the home. So we sized the ridge beam and the floor girder as an even number so the house could easily be split apart. For Clayton Homes, the roof pitch did pose a problem for transport, so they solved the problem by designing a hinge that can be extended and locked into place once the house has been set on site. The off-site fabrication that will be done by Clayton is one of the ways that helped us to achieve lead points in the materials and resource category by helping to control the material excess and waste. Otherwise, in order to have achieved that, we would have had to have accomplished that by providing detailed framing cut sheets and order lists.
As part of the project to understand Norris as a community, we looked at the beginning to look at ways that landscape was treated by the TVA originally, and started to understand that the TVA was sort of a break from conventional understandings of landscape, and that in the project, landscape became something that was about service, not only about beauty or the pastoral ideal. And so we were interested in not only the first competition, but also in the development of ways that landscape became more of a service element to the project as a whole, and that has been aided by LEED in our effort to secure points in the sustainable sites category, which right now we have 18, projected 18 points out of 22. So here on the right you see the original plan of Norris, which was that same mentioned the Greenbelt town, which integrated farming, sheep raising, cattle, all sorts of localized industry that was sort of inherent with the landscape. And then on the left here you can see action of the site where we begin to look at ways to reintroduce some of the original ideas of Norris. There was originally a pathway that connected, or a system of walking paths that connected the whole city. So looking to, as you see on the top there, reintroduce some of these walking paths into our own site as a trace of what was there originally. And then implementing a series of raised beds for gardening and other uses inside in the landscape on the top there. And then on the bottom, you see stepping down the hill a series of 5 rainwater terraces, which as water is collected from the roof and used in the house, and that gray water is discharged into these terraces and filtered and then released in the landscape. And here you see in the site plan, again, ways of trying to meld what's service and what's pastoral, and letting this house be as sensitive as possible, as Sammy mentioned, of trying to work within the existing context and create something that pushes what's already there versus trying to start over.
Norris, while not a large community, has an average age utility of 80 years old. This means that the sewer and water pipes are brittle, corroded, and failing due to age. Most, if not all, of communities facing such are employing rehabilitation techniques to bring their systems up to date, and so is Norris slowly. As a civil engineering member of the team, I wanted to focus on how to eliminate pressure on an already aged infrastructure while meeting the requirement of platinum certified LEED residents in the category of water efficiency. This would be achieved by collecting Norris House annual 54 inches of rainfall, using 600 plus square feet of roof area, directing it through potable guttering into a 400-gallon cistern, then filtering and disinfecting using inline UV light. A rainwater harvesting system, in combination with the EPA water sense fixtures, will reduce the average per person usage from 70 gallons per day to 45, and will supply water to household conveniences. Any overflow, any overflow is collected below the tank and directed to stormwater gardens, which you mentioned earlier. The house separates its gray water and black water, the latter which enters into the city sewer system with an 85 to 90% reduction in volume. Gray water then flows out to the multi-use terrace treatment basins, which first contain hardwood mulch and are bordered by plantings and vegetable gardens.